lot of builders find themselves in the exact same position with the same draining projects as last year and the year before. Why am I not growing? What am I doing wrong? In this podcast, we share what builders do to break free from being stuck in the same spot year after year to then grow and thrive as a building company.
Summarize that problem for me.
Yeah, so the problem that we're hearing a lot lately, well, not lately, it's always been there. A lot of builders have faced it and facing it, and that is just that constant hustle and grind and doing long days, doing later nights, and just not feeling like they're actually getting closer, getting ahead. They can't shake the challenges of the team, or challenges getting new clients or the right clients, the challenges that come with growing the business, and they just feel like they're just circling. I think of late, a lot of guys have been busy with everything going on, but now of late, I'm starting to hear a lot of, despite being real busy, the business didn't really go places.
Yeah.
And even now, I'm finishing jobs. I still got maybe 6 months left of jobs, bigger jobs or whatever, but I actually haven't had any new inquiries for a while. So that's always hard to hear.
And what are they saying? Like, what are they feeling by realizing all that?
A lot of guys out there are, I think, not asking the right kind of questions. And I used the example just before the camera started rolling on, are you asking, I'm not getting leads, what am I not doing? As opposed to what are the most important things that I need to do to start getting the business to where I need to get it.
Okay.
In our podcast today, I wanted to raise sort of 3 topics along the line of are you asking the right kind of questions? So point 1 being, are you asking the right questions and understanding that concept? 2 is then the fruits of that and where you can start applying that new mindset or methodology, maybe if you want to call it that, in regards to relationships, because relationships are everything with your clients, with your trades, with your team, all that sort of thing. And then thirdly, actually, I'll leave the third one till third. We'll get there.
Love that. Yeah.
But yeah, maybe Ange, if you want to kick it off with that first question, are you asking the right questions?
That's good.
When you hear that, what comes to mind, and where do you sort of draw from, and how do you ask your questions?
So the Jewish, they believe in like the way they measure someone and how wise they are. It's not how much I know, but it's the questions, the type of questions they ask.
Yeah, right.
And it's not, so if someone else asks them a question, it's being able to return that with even a deeper question.
That's a good point. I think now that you say that, I suppose we could all think, those moments where you get kind of hit with a question and you're like, wow, that person's really given that thought.
Yes.
So, wow, okay, that person's a deep thinker. You must have at least a significant amount of knowledge to have curated that question. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that. But yeah, that definitely is a big one.
So how do you translate that to business? It's not always knowing everything.
When I heard the initial topic, it was the audiobook I was listening to, and he was sort of quoting somebody else that, big in business, has a private jet, had people come up to him and say, oh, how much was it? That's the kind of question they asked. Imagine if you had one question and that's the question you asked. What a waste. Because figuring out, when you hear how much it is, how is that going to help you at all? As opposed to what this guy was saying is, what if you had one question to ask this, billionaire, what you should ask him is, what do I have to do to get that? Or what did you have to do to get that? Then you can begin to get a roadmap of how to do it. That's a way more better use of energy and that's something, when I heard that a few weeks ago, that's just been stewing in the back of my mind. And then I started seeing it in many places, but one that was common was talking to builders, and they would ask me, oh, well, how much is it? How much is this? Just tell me that. As opposed to those builders that go, well, what's included? What's involved? And then the big question that you could see, the guys that are really switched on, who have a certain level of wisdom, they're asking, what do I have to do, or what do we have to do together to get the best outcome for this? Because when you look at the goals that they want to achieve and the outcomes that they want from this investment, from the stories and videos and marketing with us, it dwarfs the investment. Like the investment is minuscule compared to the outcome it gets for them.
Yeah.
If they execute, if we all work together to execute right.
Yeah.
And there are things that we do and we take care of for our builders,
Yeah.
which has a huge impact on their business. But there are certain elements that we leave to them, and we give them a very clear roadmap on how to do that. And then when I have catch-ups with them after a few weeks later of stories are ready, they can now use them. We're doing stuff for them. And then the stuff that I've left for them to do, and there's a clear roadmap there, like I said, the ones that have gone, cool, we've done it all, what's next? And then we can brainstorm. And then they go away and they do that, and they come back and we brainstorm. And then they're the ones that go, man, 10 levels more than the guys who I catch up with and I go, well, how's it going? Oh, I haven't had a chance to look at it. You know, or I just haven't got around to it, or sure, you might be busy, but again, it just comes back to other topics we discussed, which is the who, not how. And I'm saying that you have to execute on that. Maybe just have a look at it so you know what's involved, and then you find a who to execute on it. Just like you found a who for us. You know, you didn't create your own stories and videos and stuff like that.
So why are you finding that it's so important in that scenario to ask the right questions?
Yeah.
Then shouldn't it just be that, like, let's say you as JP in this video were meant to give all the answers straight off the bat without the client having to ask the questions? Like, why do the client still need to come to the party and ask those questions? Because what does that create?
It shows level of engagement. It also shows if how much is it? Then that's where their focus is. Their focus is on it's like looking down. How much am I going to pull out of my wallet? As opposed to, that's the goal. All right, what do we have to do to get there?
Okay.
You know,
So the type of questions.
Their attention is like kilometers apart, those two builders.
Yeah.
And so imagine going around with a mindset like this. This is how I make my decisions.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody goes, yeah, we're going there.
Yeah.
We're going there. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, we're going there.
So if you have that attention, so if your questions are more like outcome based,
Yeah.
and like how do we make this relationship as valuable as possible, get the best results as possible.
Yeah.
What does that then ultimately result for the client? Like, how does that change from looking down and being out there?
I would say it just gives them a huge amount of clarity. And like the reason why we go through our vision and story development in the very beginning, before we touch a camera, before we do anything, is it gives them and us and everyone, but definitely them, a very, very clear Northern Star. And so every decision that is then made after that is not ad hoc. It's does that align or does it not align with where we're going? So in terms of decision fatigue, you reduce a huge amount of that. You can easily, it's easier to hire, it's easier to lead the team, it's easier to choose which projects, which clients, because it's all about, does it align with where we are going?
Yeah.
Are all these who's the right who's?
Yeah.
I suppose that then jumps onto the next topic, which is, okay, when you ask the right kind of questions and you're looking at it from a relationship perspective, and we were discussing this earlier, you know, looking at, okay, what about your team? What about your clients? What about your trades? Your family, you know, your spouse, your kids, you know, looking at all of those relationships, everyone that you engage with, and looking at it, well, how do I make this the best relationship? How do we both win out of this? And I would say it comes back to asking the right kind of questions. I mean, a big question.
Can you give me a couple examples? Sorry, I just jumped in there.
An example would be, say you're hiring a new trade, and you were frustrated with the last one. Let's look at it let's say that not wrong and right, but two different ways to go about it. One way would be that guy, you know, it wasn't working out, so you just got rid of him. Next guy on, awesome man, just jump in where he was, or this is the what we need. Go ahead and get it done. As opposed to, that's scenario one. Scenario two is you let the first trade go, you bring on the next trade, and before he starts, you sit down and go, hey man, I would like a really long-term relationship. I want the very best out of this. What do you need from me as the builder, as the facilitator here? What do you need from me so that we can have a long-term relationship and it benefits both of us really, really well?
Yeah.
So you enjoy this relationship, you want to come work on my projects, and yeah, you know, you ask that kind of question,
What does that create? Yeah.
Well, it very quickly establishes a relationship based on mutual respect, as opposed to a purchase order and paying it, making it just a transaction. It will often catch people by surprise. I know you mentioned that sometimes if we're working with someone out there, a contractor of some sort, and then we will ask them that straight up. Once we do a lot of heavy vetting, then the question is, we would like a really long-term relationship with this. We want this to work out really well. What would you like from us? What do you need from us? How do you want information transferred?
And you find a lot of times with that, the guy's sort of like taken back. He's like, man, no one's asked me that question.
Yeah.
It's like, man, these guys genuinely actually care about the longevity, about my side, because they come from a past of where people just kind of treat them as like a transaction, which is fine. It's still transaction. There's still money being transferred, but there is that thing of that care, and suddenly you throw their attention outcome basis and further.
Yeah, you really help and this comes back to vetting. So you can't just ask someone on the street, what do you want out of this relationship? There's no foundation somewhat established. But when you do ask someone that question, and you ask them the right kind of person, because you've obviously qualified them a bit, it then takes their money off the mind. Takes their money off the mind, takes the mind off the money side of the transaction, and rather looks at it from a relationship perspective. Then you might hear something like, well, I'd love it if you can get me the orders, or you can get the book me in X amount of weeks in advance, and we can just have a catch up, or maybe we can have a heavy meeting now before the first project to set some just foundationals before every other project, how I like to run things, how I just set expectations. Well, then you're off to the races. And that goes for your team. I know when we have catch-ups with our elite builders and we hear from them, how do they go about attracting and retaining the right kind of team and developing the right kind of team? Man, it's asking the right kind of questions. It's not making assumptions. I've heard some guys even I know one guy, a story that someone was telling me was they had a fantastic project manager, unicorn, and they knew that he was being headhunted and had been approached by several other builders. And so they sat down with him, took him out for dinner, and just asked him, what is it that you need? What is it that you are looking for in your career, in your life, and sitting down and taking the time to ask the right kind of questions in the right environment, he was able to say, well, I really want to build my family a home, but I'm X amount short. And so they were able to go, well, man, we're a building company. We can definitely help you with that. If you stick with us for the next X amount of years, I don't know what the structure was, but if it's effectively they'll build the house for him. And so it was like just asking the right kind of questions makes a huge difference, and just taking the time out. And that goes for anyone. How can I better support you?
Yes.
Me on the front end, then transferring information and communicating with the team that then take it from there, the production team, the story team. It's really important that I'm asking the right kind of questions and saying, what is the best way, or how would you like me to transfer information to you? How would you like me to communicate?
Yes.
In a way that is consistent, is a way that gives you confidence then when you begin to engage with the client. So you apply that to all the relationships. It can make a huge impact.
It's a way of life. Like, the more I look at it, it's a way of life with every certain area. It's like, can you ask questions? And then, like you say there with the team, getting them to start learning, okay, cool, I've got to ask questions. Like when I'm talking to the clients or to trades or people, I've got to ask questions. Because the more questions you can ask and the better questions you can ask, the better the outcome's going to be overall.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine a new guy rocking up to site and then you just fire hydrant him with information. This is how I want it done. You're going to do it like this. This is the expectations here. And to an extent, that needs to be expressed. Expectations need to be set for sure. But do you ever ask any questions? Would be the question I ask. But yeah, it's important.
So that brings us to point number three.
Yeah.
The one we've been waiting for. What is it, JP?
It is, are you asking yourself the right kind of questions?
So a kind of reflection
Yeah.
of some sort.
So like we discussed in the beginning, you know, are you, whether a job goes well or doesn't go well, are you stopping long enough to reflect and ask yourself the question of, well, why? Why did that work well and why didn't it work well? What did we do that brought that outcome? And how can we make that a repeatable process? You know, like when you cook a cake, you can have the ingredients and you have the recipe and it's repeatable. So if you ask yourself the right kind of questions, you should be able to then assess a job that went really well and go, okay, well, what were the factors? And that's a big thing that we've been really pushing down in the last 12 months is this idea of that ideal client. Who is that? And then the more we ask that question, the more we began to realize, hang on a sec, when someone describes their ideal client, they are describing someone who they've already finished a job for, or they're busy, they're maybe halfway through a build. So actually what they're describing is someone who they've had multiple opportunities to build a great relationship with. There's been multiple opportunities where they've been able to say, I'm going to do this, and they do it. They've had a number of chances and successfully, because they're describing this client, successfully build trust, to set themselves as an authority, to show their knowledge and expertise and specialty in this space or whatever that is. And so our research then was going, okay, well, what made up that? What are all the possible things that could make up? So that was us asking the right kind of questions. What are all the possible things that could make up that great relationship that went into establishing that? Okay, well, it turned out a lot of it was repeated points of contact. So you're having lots of design meetings. The consistency engaging, consistency showing up, consistency in being in their world, in their life, and educating, providing value. So you're doing that when you're engaging with them, designs, then you're starting to build, doing walkthroughs, catch-ups, updates. And they're also getting to know you. They're also getting to see your specialty, see what you're good at. And we realized that, hang on a sec, a lot of that can actually be captured and be put at the very beginning of the relationship.
Yeah.
Before they even reach out and talk to you, which means that you can actually, out there, before they come talk to you, manufacture ideal clients. And then it's about client banking them, just keeping them in the factory until you're ready to build. And then, creating Kurt talks about, overbook the plane. And then you get to choose which clients you take on. And then it's about having, again, relationships and asking the right kind of questions, asking, builders around you, if they're open to having then work farmed off to them. Sorry, but I was a bit off.
No, that's good.
Off there,
no, that's great. So what I'm hearing is that at the end of something, of a client, or even during the process, you do a bit of reflection. You kind of go like, why is this working out? Or maybe why this is not working out?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. And that is a big part about the ongoing, because things are always changing. And that's a big part about when we're working with a client, it's always asking them, or Richard, looking at things on the back end of the BV Amplify, and going, well, what's working, what's not? Why is it working? Why is it not? And so it's constantly being optimized to bring our clients, our builders, better and better, more educated clients. But that goes back to asking yourself the right kind of questions. Sometimes it is hard to do that. And so that's where I would say, as some takeaways, do you have a mentor?
Yeah.
Do you know, or can you reach out to a builder that is maybe closer to your goals, or has already achieved them, and ask them how did you go about achieving that?
It could be like you say there, you reach out, you sit down with them beforehand, you write down like 10 good questions. Like ultimately what, from your side, like let's say I'm the builder, Andre, and like what do I want to get from this guy at the end of the meeting? Here's my goals in a way. So when you get in front of him, you kind of go, hey, look, man, like I really appreciate this. And then you ask those questions until you understand it. You keep asking deeper questions. And that's going to give you a lot clearer blueprint. That's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. I know okay. So mentor would be one, if you're struggling to ask yourself the right kind of questions. Two would be, I guess it comes into mentor, maybe a coach. You know, there are some great building coaches out there. And then you've got a community. So are you part of a community? Maybe with other like-minded builders. I know with our community and with a mastermind there, just last week, one of the guys came in and it was the other guys in the group that were asking him questions that allowed him to have this huge epiphany, which is just amazing. I had lunch with him yesterday and he was like, man, like, and he only jumped on the call for 20 minutes. Yeah, it was like a 2-hour chat with everyone, and he only jumped on for like 20 minutes and had this huge epiphany. But it was the others there asking the right questions. So again, you know, having people around you is very, very important.
Yeah, that's good. Like I absolutely love this topic, and I feel like this is, you look at those people that you feel like has done very well, and it's like reached the epitome or whatever the word is to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you now, nothing else makes them special. It's the questions they ask. Because those questions then help them form what they need to do next to achieve that and to get there.
I think a lot of guys, when you hear some guys that have achieved really high levels, they'll often say, well, I knew my limitations. I knew what I didn't know. I knew what I knew and didn't know. And that comes to asking questions. You know, what do I know? What do I don't know? Okay, then who do I need to get in here to help me with that? Perfect. Not just trying to do it all yourself.
To summarize today's topic, it's been such a good topic, and I would so much want to dive deeper into this, because this is like the world that I love. How would you summarize to the viewers and to the listeners today the key things to take away from this?
Might sound really simple, but just ask the right kind of questions. So maybe start with relationships. Ask those around you that you're working with every day, hey, what can I do to better support you in your role? You know, what is it that you need to flourish? What are your goals and what do you need to flourish in that role? You ask those kind of questions, a team are going to be willing to really put a lot more in to helping you achieve your goals. So, and then your goals and visions are aligned, which is the best.